sorry, I talked to Hur Kyung-Wook, former Vice Minister of Strategy and Finance and former Ambassador of Korea to the OECD, and of course also having this remarkable binocular view that is very useful. So can I give you the floor?
Thank you very much. As introduced, actually, I worked my way in the Ministry of Finance. In 1997, I was a division chief during the Asian financial crisis, negotiating with the IMF at the working level. 2008, when this global storm rushed to Asia, I was a vice minister of finance, so I was at the forefront of this crisis as well. And right now, one of the hats I have is there's an institution called AMRO, Asian Macroeconomic Research Office. In a way, this is an offspring of the Asian financial crisis. After the Asian financial crisis, Asian countries get together and try to come up with the Asian version of IMF, which is called AMF, and then idea was dropped. But finally, what we have now is a central bank swap, multilateralized, around $240 billion between ASEAN 10 countries and Japan, Korea, China, what we call ASEAN plus 3. And to manage those money, I mean, not actual money, to manage those arrangements, we set up a surveillance institution in the form of the IMF, but much, much smaller. It's around 40 people right now. But that's become a formal international organization this year. And as I'm one of the 6 advisors, non-residential advisors, I just want to bring the attention a little bit away from advanced economies and to the Asian countries. Like any other country, Asian country was very much alerted with this unexpected result of the Trump election. And what we are afraid is that of course, there's a lot of uncertainty, but if, as often mentioned by Mr. Trump, if the combination of this drastic spending, tax cut, combined with the protectionism, can be very toxic to many Asian economies. Because as you know, many Asian economies are very much trade dependent. And after this 2008 crisis, Asian economies also suffered a long slowdown, and now it's slowly on its way coming back. But then during this couple of years when we have a very slow trade growth, most Asian countries has turned to domestic consumption as well as investment, which is fueled by easy money, both domestic and from abroad as well. And what the Trumponomics seems to say is that America is going to have a big budget deficit, and most likely the dollar will going to strengthen, and the interest rate hike will be much faster than we expected before. Then Asian countries face this dilemma. If they raise the interest rates to stem the capital outflow, then their debt that has been a major mechanism to finance the investment and consumption, we're going to begin to suffer. And why, if they stayed or their interest rate, or if they decided to lower the interest rate, then capital outflow is going to start. In normal cases, then your low interest rate as well as your low exchange rate will going to have a better advantage in your trade. But if there's a trade protectionism coming together, then Asian countries will have big difficulties. And this is why, following this taper tantrum, many Asian economies have been more or less well prepared at this time. But after Trump election, many economies in the region had an exchange rate depreciation. We all focus on 10% depreciation in Mexico, but if you look at the Asian countries, Korea's exchange rate lost about 7%. Many Asian countries, somewhere around 5% or so, also suffered. So when we talk about G20 and how important that we have this emerging market voice in the G20, but at the end of the day, I think the G20, just like the taste of a pudding is in its taste, the test of the pudding is in its taste, G20 should prove its value by trying to really, not in just words, but in deeds, to reducing this, resisting this trade protectionism, raising its ugly head over again. And yesterday we had this APEC declaration, which also talk about resisting trade protectionism, but without America playing its leading role, it will be very, very unrealistic. And then we're going to see not only the slowdown of the Asian emerging economy, which is one of the most dynamic part of the world, but altogether, we are talking about secular stagnation of advanced countries, but combined with the slowdown with Asian countries, I think it will be a pretty messy picture. And plus, two more things are coming into play. And one is, of course, China. China is at the center of the value chain in Asia. And many people expect that the current rate of 6.7% around that level is not sustainable. As mentioned, we have this overcapacity of steel, shipbuilding, in all those areas. We have this chronic problem of the SOEs. So all those things show that if China slows down, not soft landing, but more of a hard landing, if not a crash landing, that will be another severe blow to Asian countries in the region. And Japan, the second largest economy in Asia, but all this, despite all the good things that Abenomics has done, for many Asian countries, Japan's Abenomics effect is mostly felt in its exchange rate policy, which is done by this monetary policy. So that also raised a problem for many Asian economies. So what are you gonna do? Basically, you talk about productivity, and already if you look at the Asian countries, they are altogether, ASEAN, for example, 650 million people, and they are like average per capita GDP is around $5,000, already less than $5,000. So they are already, in a way, a typical so-called middle-income trap area. So without all these problems, of course, there's a very strong incentive to work on the productivity gains. But here again, the productivity gains, when you look at those things, one of the important elements is the trade, competition coming from the trade, as well as technological transfer. So the protectionism is coming, this innovation or so-called productive growth, we're going to suffer not only in advanced economies, but many emerging economies as well. And not only in the advanced economies, but even countries like Korea already begin to see the underlying resentment against the growing inequality. And if the productivity gain is not there, then if the wage cannot get its fair share, still continue to being depressed, then this social mobility as well as this race politics, we're going to come back to Asian countries as well. So that's one thing we are very much worried about. Maybe a little bit about financial sector. We are very glad that
if I may, you're very close to your conclusion.
Oh, yes. I just want to focus on highlight one thing, demographic challenges, not only for this secular stagnation, but in general, Korea is the fastest Asian country, whether you know or not. We are moving from aging society to super aged society within 26 years, which is a record in history. And Japan has followed that path in something like 38 years. But I think there should be more attention and study about these demographic changes in terms of productivity, but in terms of the financial market and all the other areas. I just want to stop it here. Thank you.
Thank you. But you will have to respond to a lot of questions. So thank you very much indeed. It was very, very stimulating. And again, I could see protectionism and I would say secular stagnation, lack of productivity progress as a leitmotif, as was the case in the previous exposition.